Okay, here we are again on Witch Talk. We had a little, heartburn here on the software again, and I'm going to put our guest introduction again so that we can hear it again. So here we go. Denise Alvarado studied art formally at the University of Iowa and Kirkwood Community College of Iowa. However, her professional life ended up taking a different direction, and she ended up with an associate's degree in human services, a bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology, and a master's degree in clinical psychology. She is currently a PhD candidate in psychology research and evaluation at Walden University and was awarded a Walden University Fellowship for Research and Application of Social Change for her research with Native Americans. She takes every opportunity to study spirituality, religions, and mysticism. In spite of her extensive academic background and quest for sound science, she still believes in the healing arts, magic, spirituality, and yes, voodoo. As a New Orleans native and the daughter of two of the best artists in the world, she was exposed to a wide variety of art forms from the time she was old enough to be aware. Her father, Don Alvarado, was a formally trained and renowned medical illustrator, Grey's Anatomy, and her mother, May Moore, was largely a self-taught painter of folk art, nature, and mystical imagery. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest today on Witch Talk, Denise Alvarado. Finally. Welcome, Denise. Welcome to Witch Talk. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm so sorry that we had to interrupt this whole thing. But, the software is having a little bit of a problem. So how are you? Are you okay on this whole waiting thing?
I'm good. I'm
Okay,
good.
okay.
I'm getting kind of used to it. My last interview also had had some major glitches, so
Oh, okay.
it just seems to come with the territory a little
Okay,
bit.
okay, that's good. That's good. Well, not good, but So,
Right.
yeah, it's not really good. So, one of the first things that I want to know about you, and we know that you have all this fantastic, degrees, and you're pursuing another one. It's just amazing. But I want to know a little bit more about your life when you were, when you begin to get in contact with all of these things. Now, your first thing that you were exposed to was art, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that was something that was present on your childhood. How did that
Correct.
influence you?
Oh, wow. Hmm. I think it influenced everything
Yes.
about me,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father always, and my mother, they were both artists, so it was just part of our lives, and it was a means of expressing, ourselves. And it was some of the best memories of my life with my father, because he would take me down. He worked at the LSU Medical School, Louisiana State University.
Hmm.
And he would take me down to the office with him, and I would give me all these wonderful brand new art supplies, and just let me, have a ball with it. And I got to hang out with the graphic artists um, and learn all the techniques and all the ins and outs of graphic art and fine art. So yeah, it was great. It was great.
It's wonderful. And your mother also was an artist, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm asking you this because my whole family are artists. My father is a sculptor. My grandfather was a painter, and my mother was also an artist. And as your mother was a self-taught artist, so
Right.
it really is something that it opens a little bit more. I think that we are almost like it opens the doors of a sensitivity of some sort, that it's not really something that you would have if your parents would be like, I don't know, a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. If you are exposed to art, and if obviously a child will look at the pencils and they want to, just imitate the mother or the father doing their own, thing, and it's something that really transforms you and guides you, all through your life, I think. Now, how did you get involved with the occult?
Well, my mother, one of the main subjects that my mother painted was astrological portraits.
Yes.
And so, from a very early age, I was, taught about astrology and spiritualism.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And, I learned a lot of the symbolism and all the meanings and all that stuff. It was just part of how I grew up, part of what was present.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an aunt who was really one of my pivotal teachers. When I was about 5 years old was when she first sat me down and taught me about contacting the spirits and working with candles. And I can remember, to this day, an early memory of just her sitting me down at this table in this small house that my grandmother had behind her home on the bayou in Mississippi, and she would she lit a candle and told me how we can speak to the spirits through and to watch the flame, and that they would talk to us and communicate with us through the flame, and that we had control over it, and just a lot of different things she taught me that stay with me to this day.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's something I was really born into.
Yeah.
It's not something that I got into later. It was just something that I was born into.
Now, on that context, did you because some of my guests, talked about, oh yes, I saw, when I was a little girl and when I was a little boy, I saw this, I saw that, or I felt this, or I felt that. Did you ever had any experience when you were a child that kept, still today it's there?
I don't know. I guess I don't know that there was anything that really stands out so much, because it was just such a part of everyday life for me.
So it was not really a surprise. Oh, I saw something different.
No, it wasn't.
It was something that it was like a daily thing.
Right.
Yeah,
it was just something. It was just part of my normal world view and my normal experience. I do remember when Legba first made himself known to me.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, speaking of art and how that, is a means of expression, how it really does color, the way we see things and the way we interact with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, one of my first pen and ink drawings that I did was of Legba. I didn't realize that's who it was until later on.
Oh, wow.
But, from a very early age, he... was able to draw what he looked like.
That's amazing. That's very nice. And we're talking about how many years old were you when you did this?
I was probably around 7 or 8.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, and how does it come this thing about the voodoo and all of this? Is it because you lived there, so it was just because of the surroundings that you were brought into this? Because some people live in areas that have a lot of history about something or some practice, and they just find something else. You know what I mean? Because they want to get out of there.
Right.
But it was not your case.
No, it wasn't. I had, not only was I, born and raised in New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
And certainly there are people who are born and raised there and never, take up voodoo, never have exposure to it, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But for me, because there were people in my family that were spiritualists and related to the spirits in that way, that I was open to it. It was. I mean, I remember, I had a box with all of my little, magical tools or whatever since I was very small, and that was given to me by my mother and my aunt, and my father wasn't really active in that at all. He was just very open, and he was very encouraging. He never told me I couldn't, do any kind of spirituality that I wanted to. He was very just supportive of anything I wanted to explore, anything I wanted to develop. And so I was very fortunate in that way that, that I had parents like that.
That's very wonderful.
Now, he also made me go to catechism, and we did have to go to Catholic church, which is, pretty common in New Orleans. But it was kind of the thing to do as Hispanicized Aztecs.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting because, we're going to talk about voodoo and what voodoo is, but and we're going to see that there is somehow almost like a fusion of a series of things, and the imagery is very interesting also because there is a fusion of some Catholic imagery, saints and stuff. So it's very interesting. Now tell me, this is why do you think? And this I ask this to everyone that either practice one of these very stigmatic. And I don't know why. I think it was Hollywood is the guilty party in here, I guess. But Century and Voodoo are two of those that actually had a bad rap. And Voodoo is really certainly one of them. And New Orleans is also this almost mythical place, that people in Europe look at and think, oh wow, that was the land of the voodoo, of the American voodoo. So it's just an amazing thing. Why do you think that voodoo got a bad rap? A reputation that it was something that was very evil, pins and dolls and all of that. I think that is Hollywood. What do you think?
Oh no, it goes way deeper than that. It has to do. Yeah, come on. I mean, it has to do with racism and discrimination, and it has to do with the colonization of indigenous people.
Yeah.
It was a way of demonizing and dehumanizing Africans and Native Americans, so that justified the way they were treated.
Yes.
They were enslaved and killed and tortured and abused. And if you dehumanize somebody, then you can it's easier to engage in that kind of behavior.
Absolutely.
So.
Yes.
Yeah, so Hollywood is kind of a later
a later addition to that pile.
A later addition to the already traumatized generations.
Yes. Now, because you were born there and you actually were there all the time, can you tell us all over the years how that impacted? What was the impact of that in the community, the practicing community? Was there anything that you saw or lived through that was significant and came from that hate and that that bad rap of voodoo?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Creole, so I'm not the minority, white, in New Orleans. I'm a mixed blood person, so I certainly did experience some of that stuff. And one of the main things that I think continues even today, but was obviously more back when I was a kid, was just how voodoo went underground. There was a tourist voodoo, so there was the stuff that was put out there to for the tourist trade, but for real practitioners, what we really did was really in the privacy of our homes, and it went underground. It had to, because of just the ongoing persecution and the laws against practicing indigenous religions, and so growing up with in a tradition that had to be kept a secret. For safety, it had to be kept a secret. I remember being in the presence of, white supremacists who had guns in their car, and they were going on their nigger hunts for, the weekend. And I mean, it's those are memories that I will always have with me. Those are the memories that I have that always reinforced to me the importance of keeping it secret, because you don't want to be found out. If you were found out, you could be killed. Even, in the time when I don't know how it is now.
Yeah, yeah.
That was 51. That was 50 years ago.
Yes.
It's still that's rather recent. That kind of behavior, was still rampant in the city. Now, the other side of that is that there's also, a segment of the population that embraces it.
Yes.
So there's a dichotomy of experience that goes on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very confusing as a child growing up with those kind of, mixed messages.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, this is a very important question, because I want to, every time I have somebody that it's connected with voodoo or Century or anything like, this, what people think that it's this bad reputation kind of thing. I think that we should clarify, and that's why you're here, and that's why we're talking about your fantastic books and your fantastic projects, and that's why you're going to tell us as much as possible and clarify as much as possible, because I think that it's very important for us to understand and people understand what voodoo is really. So how would you define voodoo? Let's begin with the basics.
Well, the first thing that I was always taught was that it's a tradition based on healing, and the mothers, the women mostly that I was exposed to, and certainly there's also men, but working with the roots and the herbs and the plants and things like that for just everyday things that would come up, health things, working the roots as medicine. Was a big part of it. The other thing was or is reverence for ancestors. You have to develop a relationship with your ancestors in order to really be any kind of practitioner in voodoo. I mean, it's all about ancestor reference. So yes, it's a means of relating to the world. Both spirit and and the mundane. Yeah,
yeah. Well, like any religion, right? I mean, it's a form of relating with the spiritual world, or a higher power or higher powers. Now, and when we talk about voodoo, and especially New Orleans voodoo, can you tell us a little bit more where it come from and how we ended up with this tradition in New Orleans?
Well, New Orleans was a hub for multiple cultures. So when the Africans brought their traditional religions with them, there were segments of the population that, maintained those traditions for quite some time, and they maintained their languages for quite some time. And then, because the Native Americans were slaves before the Africans even got here, so they, were basically thrown together, and I'm sure that's where, some of the influences came from. I completely lost my train of thought.
You were talking about. No, we're talking. It's fine. It's fine. We were talking about. Well, let's just look at how they came, and then obviously this. You said they brought with them.
Right.
Yeah. And then how did it become? I mean, obviously it's not the same as they practice in Africa now. I mean, obviously not. So there was transformations. There were things, specifically, voodoo is really known by the dolls, and the dolls, and they're beautiful dolls. I just look at it's absolutely amazing. Some of them are very decorative and have like bright things in them, and a lot of symbols hanging and sewed, all of that. So was that direct, or was something that then they just incorporated into something else that they actually had around them? Because New Orleans is America; it's not really their homeland.
Right. Well, there's several traditions that have persisted since then, and voodoo dolls are. The word voodoo dolls is, the term voodoo dolls is an American term.
Yeah.
But they brought with them fetishes and little crude wooden figurines that were commonplace in Africa all along the West Coast, that were used for various purposes, protection and whatnot. But
and then they put a lot of of things in it. I mean, it's not really wood. I mean, you can do it. I'm sure that you can do it in wood, but now it's done in a different way, right? It's stuffed with.
Yeah. As so many things, one of the things that came with Africans was Grigri, and one of the common ways that it was employed was as a poison. Now there's several different ways that it was used, and Grigri in New Orleans comes from several different traditions, from traditional African medicine as well as from Islam and the marabouts, which were the priests, and they were the ones who created the Grigri for all different kinds of reasons. But a lot of it was used for poisoning, and the Africans maintained great knowledge of plants and botany. And one of the misconceptions is that they didn't know. They weren't familiar with the plants and whatnot here. But a lot of the plants were transplanted here. They were brought to Louisiana. And so, they became familiar. They already knew a lot of the purposes and characteristics and properties of those plants, and certainly the animals, too, they learned. And so the use of Grigri as a weapon of war even was... It doesn't get. It's not known for that, but that's in academic circles. It's been touched on.
Yes. Yeah. Now, for the people that don't really know what the Grigri is, we have to define it because we're talking about the Grigri, and the Grigri. What is? Can you define Grigri? So, what is it really?
Right. Well, let me just tell you what it's not. It's not just a mojo bag.
Yes, it's not a mojo bag. Exactly.
Bag. Though Grigri can be contained in a mojo in what looks like a mojo bag. So that's the most popular depiction of it that there is. But it's really a complete religio-magical system that came from Africa. And Grigri is not, like I said, not just the bag of herbs and roots or whatnot, but it's the actual act of creating it. It's the interaction you have with the spirits of the ingredients that you use to influence the environment around you. It's
a whole science.
Upon spirits. It's calling upon spirits to help.
Yes.
Which is a little different than hoodoo. At least in other areas of the country. In New Orleans, it's a mix. It's kind of a mixed tradition.
Now, would that be considered voodoo, or is that just Grigri?
That's a good question. In New Orleans, some people call our tradition Grigri. From New Orleans, people will call it Grigri.
Okay.
But New Orleans voodoo really encompasses and embraces this tradition. It was a separate tradition. Grigri is not necessarily voodoo, but in New Orleans, it was incorporated. It was
embraced.
Embraced, right.
Yeah.
And as was the magical botanical practice of hoodoo, which was also a system, a complete system of spirituality like, from Africa. It wasn't developed in the United States like people think.
Yeah.
It was changed. It was transformed once it got here because of, circumstances and the environment and things like that. But it was really had its origins in West Africa, and it was a fully developed and powerful tradition that was specific to, a person's ethnic lineage. So, we have that both of those aspects integrated into New Orleans voodoo.
Now, how about and this is completely different. I'm talking about this because people oftentimes compare, which has no comparison whatsoever, but people sometimes compare the neo-paganism with these types of religion, which is something that I think that it's very difficult to do, because it's really something that has nothing to do with one another, because one is rooted, very, very real and kind of, you can trace it to Africa. And some of the neo-pagan bits of spirituality are sometimes based on archaeological evidence, but there are really nothing there that you can just say, oh, they did it this way. So when they compare these two, there's no comparison possible. But one of the things that I want to compare, because there are totally opposites, I'm sure. It's that, in neo-paganism you have this whole thing about, the thing that was actually imported from Wicca, the En Harm None, Do As Well, and all of that. And there's code of, of ethics. Now, tell us about that. Tell us about the code of ethics of voodoo, if there is such a thing, and tell me about what is the, all of this ethics that you can get. Is it an ethics in voodoo? I'm sure there is, but just tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm sure that it's absolutely different.
Well, obviously there's no written book or anything that gives like a Bible or anything, but there's definitely a moral code.
Yes.
There's things like to be careful what you ask for. You can't ask something of the law and then take it back.
Yeah. There's a specificity, right? You have to be specific. You have to, yeah.
Right, and healing, balance, and wisdom are really goals of voodoo.
Yes.
There's, you at the core is you're not supposed to harm somebody else. But although there is justified revenge, discrimination's unacceptable.
Yes. Yeah.
Those kinds of things are. It's not like a 10 Commandments kind of thing where you can remember it, and, but it's.
No, I wouldn't expect that, but I'm just saying, because I just have a hard time when people talk about it's all good, and everything is fine, and we send them a lot of blessings, and it's you can't really wish that I think this is very intrinsic to the human being and human nature. You know what I mean? If some horrible man, is or let's just talk about horrible man. I mean, there's a rapist or whatever, rape your daughter or kidnap your son, or or robbed you of something or steal something from you. I mean, really, are you going to send pink light? You know what I mean? And I have a hard time on understanding these kinds of, thought processes, because to me, and because I was born in Portugal and I lived my whole life in Portugal, I know that this is not how things work. I mean, look around you. I mean, really, look around you. Look at the tribes of ancient, our ancestors. Look at all of those things. I mean, it's not the way it works. It really isn't. And are you? And it's, to me, it's a very kind of, you just stay there and you don't really do. It's a passive way of looking to things. You have the right to actually do something about it. Right?
Well, it's an empowering tradition, that's for sure. It's, serving the law as a means of gaining power or empowerment.
Yeah.
and, in a way that you can, really change your life in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of the main, I guess, tenets of, African religions in general, but voodoo in particular, is that of, good character. That your actions have consequences.
Yes.
And the consequences the choices you make mirror the content of your character. So, having good character is a very important moral compass.
That's very interesting. The concept of that concept is very interesting. The good character. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm asking you this, because there's a lot of things that people don't really know about voodoo, and one of the things is it's this one of the things that I like on indigenous or close to indigenous or very rooted into the subcultures or cultures, or is this kind of thing. I mean, it's very practice based. It's to get the job done, and to get obviously a relationship with entities, superior entities, spirits, or anything like that. But it's a very close one. And when you need your friends, meaning your spirits, your entities, they are there for you, but you have to be there for them. So it's a very close relationship, But I think that when you have, it's a daily, and you said that, it's a daily life thing, right? Live, this is your life, you live it daily. And when you said to me, well, I didn't really have any extraordinary experiences, because that was my daily life. I mean, things just happened around me, and so I think that when you do that, everything is very embedded into the live necessities of people. So we're talking about love, we're talking about a good husband, we're talking about a true love, we're talking about money, we're talking about health, and all of those things that people really relate to, the daily basis necessities of the human being. And these are reflected into the spells or works or or prayers or things there are on these particular traditions. And voodoo, I'm sure it's one of them. Do you agree with me?
Right. I do. Yeah. I do. I mean, that's that's what the Loa are for. That's what the spirits are for. They help us with our everyday challenges in life. Yeah. But they certainly do have to be paid. I mean, it's just a matter of common courtesy. It's not like a lot of people. I get emails all the time, about, tell me a spell so I can get my ex back, with no, expecting everything just to be handed over. Yeah. And it's just, there's so much more to it than that, I mean, I would never just ask a spirit, to help somebody or myself without, properly,
giving them
offerings and whatnot.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not such a self-centered kind of, magical practice or spiritual tradition like it seems, the common person seems to think it is. Yeah. You light a candle and ask for something, and there you go. Yeah. Well, no, it's not. It doesn't really happen like that.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting exchange, and it has to be done properly. But people don't really, they think, and it's very interesting because I think that they project the power of the practitioner in a very interesting way. They project the power into that particular practitioner, thinking, I don't need any high power. She has it, or he has it, or I will have it if I have it, the recipe to do it. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So there's no relationship between anything or, higher powers or spirits or whatever. I mean, it's just not what is, happening here. So now tell me, tell me, go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say, whenever you approach, someone who is, who has a medicine, you're supposed to give that person an offering before you even ask them. Yeah. And you should approach them with humility, not with arrogance and expectation. I was always taught that, I approach an elder with, for advice to offer tobacco. Yeah. And that's a more native tradition. Yeah. but yeah, I would never assume to go to one of my elders or somebody else, for advice and ask them to help me without
Giving
offering
them,
something.
yeah. No, absolutely.
Offering them the respect,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, there are two questions in the chat room. One of them is, in the doll videos, they mention Grigri like an ingredient. So what is Grigri as part of it? Is it Grigri part of the recipe for the voodoo doll? Or not? I think that there's kind of... But you answer it. What do you think?
The question is
The
question here?
Well, in the doll videos, when you have like the doll, making
Right.
a doll video, they mention Grigri like an ingredient. So what is Grigri? Is it part of what is it Grigri as part of the recipe, or is it not? What is it?
The Grigri can be a doll. Can be a Grigri. I mean, you can have a Grigri doll.
Okay.
And basically, the doll, is stuffed with various things that are the, the herbs and plants or whatever it is that you want to put in the doll that comprises the Grigri, and then the doll is the vessel that carries it.
Yes.
And but the very act of creating the doll is the Grigri as well.
Okay. That's nice.
It's a noun and a verb. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's another question. How does the idea of karma is present itself in voodoo, if at all?
It's not called karma, but it's exactly what I said about, good character.
Yes.
And that your consequences have actions.
Yes.
And your consequences are determined by the choices you make.
No. And
your choices mirror the content of your character.
Yes.
You can't expect to do something and that it doesn't have an effect on the universe.
Okay.
It doesn't have, your everything we do, every word we speak, every thought we think is energy, and it does have an effect. Now, in Hinduism, they call that karma. There's also the belief that you are in reincarnation.
Yeah.
But the idea that what you do will come back to you is certainly not a foreign idea in voodoo.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit more about the origin of the dolls. I'm sure that the dolls came from Africa, right? You said, well, what is called now voodoo doll? Did they have special names when they came or not?
Yes, and all along the West African coast, there were there's a tradition of the bokio, which were the basically objects of power. Then they're created out of wood and basically assemblages of a variety of things that the person who created it. It was basically, it's like a three-step process. There's a person who creates it, there's a person who activates it, and then there's a person that actually, that it goes to.
Yeah.
So, now that's kind of changed. And then, there's also the Nkisi, they call them also, which are also objects that possess, that are, they're like vessels for spirits to reside in.
Okay.
And so, and the voodoo dolls of New Orleans incorporate those basic aspects.
Yeah.
They don't, they resemble them remotely in the sense that they are, look like figures of humans. But there's the process of creation, there's a process of activation, and then there's a process, the process of using it. And also, voodoo dolls can also be used as vessels to house spirits as well, just like the way they were used in Africa.
Africa, yeah. That's very interesting.
Then, of course, there's the adoption of the European folk magic as well.
Yes.
Just like I said, it was a lot of different cultures in New Orleans, and we certainly absorbed a lot of those different influences.
Oh, you mentioned a lot of it in your in your books, and you actually have little pictures of not only Greek tablets or curse tablets, but also of the katadesmoi, or even the little European little effigies, or made of clay or made of out of metal. They had a lot of materials that they used.
Right.
And this is something that it's very interesting because it crosses a lot of cultures, doesn't it? It's amazing, and then you find it in it's very interesting. I just love it. Now, tell me, what is the main ingredient in a voodoo doll? What is the thing that you said, well, sorry, you can't really have a voodoo doll if you don't have that?
Well, of course, in true to the tradition, a voodoo doll is created out of what is, readily available in the environment.
Yes.
So in New Orleans, that would be the Spanish moss, because it's all over the cypress trees and the bayous. It's in the, the oak trees. I mean, the Spanish moss is everywhere, and it makes a fabulous stuffing.
Yes.
And then, we'd make the heads out of the mud from a crawfish hole.
Yes.
So those are two of the, some of the more traditional ingredients.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's amazing for making it. Now, they don't have to be big, right? They can be very, very small, right?
They can be any size.
They vary, yeah. They vary on size. Does size matter?
Well, that all depends, Carrigan.
Okay.
I want to say yes.
Okay.
Okay, but the truth of the matter is, as it relates to voodoo dolls, that all depends, really. Say for example, you want to do, you want to make a voodoo doll for fertility.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you've ever seen any of the fetishes in Africa that are fertility fetishes, they have huge penises.
Yes.
And Legba, for example, as he's depicted in Africa, is always, the penis is just phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when we make them in New Orleans, fertility dolls, we will make them with, big erect penises.
Yes.
It's for a man who's looking for virility or sex or whatever. So,
that's amazing. Well, size matters.
But in terms of the actual size of the doll itself, that's not quite as important.
No, that was silly. That was a silly Carrigan, serial Carrigan. But but it was like a little, So let me just say this: we're giving away a voodoo doll. And also a book, one of the books, the Voodoo Doll Spellbook from Denise Alvarado. And we have also a magazine, the Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly, that we have to give away. We have to give away also. So I want to ask the first question, right?
Okay.
About the doll. And it relates with the name of the doll. Okay, so the first question is, let me see if I can get this right, because I don't want it to say, okay, what is the original form of the modern day voodoo doll? So we're looking for a name. What is the original form of the modern day voodoo doll? So we're looking for origin, and we're looking for a name of that particular name that we're looking for. So one of the things that I love, and let's talk about your book. Let's talk about the Voodoo Doll Spellbook. We have a lot of books to talk about. Let's just go to this one now that we're looking for the Voodoo Doll name. This is an amazing book. It's not because it's just amazing, Denise. I'm kind of flabbergasted when I open in the table of contents. I go like, oh, wow, because he has everything. You know what I mean? This is one of those books, and I said this on Friday with Indigo, I had a show called Witch Talk Conjure, and it's very interesting because your magazine is called Hoodoo and Conjure, and you have another thing that it's your what is it called, a network that it's called Planet Voodoo Conjure Corner. So you have a lot of conjures, and I have a lot of conjures also. But it's very interesting. I said to Indigo, this is one of the books that I think that everyone should have. Even if they are not interested in voodoo dolls, but just the concept and what it is and how is it done and explained, it's absolutely amazing. And you have a lot of things here. I mean, you have everything. Not everything, but you have a lot. You have binding spells, you have blessing spells, you have banishing spells. It's just beautiful, and it's very well made, very well organized. And you have basically spells for everything, I guess. Court cases, breakup spells, employment spells. This is very interesting, actually, the employment ones, especially nowadays. Good luck and success, healing spells. Now, what was the idea behind this book? Why did you write it?
Well, I have just collected spells forever and a day with voodoo dolls because that was one of my first tools that I was given as a child, was a voodoo doll.
Yeah.
My mom taught me how to make one. So I've always had, I've always been, absorbing those kinds of works and experimenting with them. And as I, got older as an adult and I, pursued anthropology and whatnot, it opened up a whole world. It wasn't just the voodoo. It was, or hoodoo. It was, wow, they came, almost all cultures have some form of doll magic, it seemed to me. And I thought it was fascinating. So I wanted to, the book is called the Voodoo Doll Spellbook, but certainly, and I use the term voodoo doll just as a catch-all term. That would, describe any kind of doll used in a magical way.
Yes.
So, from ancient Egypt to Greece to, the Romans, Native American, African, Europe. There's just so many ways that dolls have been used over time. To influence our lives and to change things and to manipulate people and manipulate situations. I just found it very fascinating. And then the book was getting to be so big, I actually had to. There's going to be a volume 2.
I know. It says volume 1. Oh my God!
I had to stop. I'm like, okay, this is going to be ridiculously long. So let me just stop, and then I'll just make a volume 2. I
was very kind of like, oh my God! I just have the volume 1. There is a volume 2. I don't have it all.
There's going to be.
Yes, there's going to be. So, okay. So the way that this is done is that you have, there's historical facts here, and about the voodoo dolls and how they came, and everything, and sometimes you have things here. There are actually not typically what you would call voodoo, because it's Greco-Roman business spell, for instance. It makes use of something else, but it's just an amazing thing. And you do have some things, I guess, from the Greek papyri, don't you? I think you do. Yes, and which is absolutely amazing. I just love it. And but you do have a lot of and this is where I wanted to go with all of this, and we're going to talk about other things, but there's a lot of Psalms. For instance, you have the Psalm 51 King James Version for breakup spells. So you have a lot of things like this. Now, one of the questions that people ask me about this book is, and they ask me over and over again, is do you have to be a practitioner of voodoo to do the spells that are in this book?
Well, no. No, you don't.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make the question because people sometimes. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
But
no, you don't have to be. You don't have to be a practitioner of voodoo. You can be any kind of magical path, and and because most of the spells are not
Yes.
voodoo.
Yeah.
Like I said, the word is, I use the term because it's the popular term to use.
Yes.
And it's even the term that's been adopted in academia for describing dolls used in magic and ritual. So I'm following suit.
Yes.
In that sense.
Okay. Now we have a winner.
We do.
Yes, we do
For which question?
For the first one, what is the original name of the voodoo doll? And Maestro Nestor, he's actually a ceremonial magician, and it's very interesting. He's from Sweden, and he said one of the names. I mean, he said Nkisi or Nixie dolls. So that's what he said. So is it correct?
That's correct.
Okay, you accept
that?
That
is one of yes, I would accept that.
Okay.
That is one of them.
Okay. Okay. Now the other names of the voodoo doll that we mentioned in our conversation was Bokyo, right? And it's very interesting that you have to send a voodoo doll to Europe. Isn't that very weird? To send to Europe a voodoo doll.
Well, it won't be the first time. I send them to Europe all the time.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yep.
I didn't thought that people would, ask for voodoo dolls in Europe anyway.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh,
my
wow.
God. Yeah. It's probably a third of my business is Europe.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a winner, Master Nestor. You will receive
Awesome.
a voodoo doll. So now tell me about that voodoo doll that you're sending him. Do you have any idea?
Well, it will be one of the traditional New Orleans voodoo moss dolls, and so he can, tell me what kind he wants. What does he need help with? For relationships, there's a wish granting doll. There's one for repelling negativity or hexing. There's one for spirituality.
There's a lot of
money.
dolls. Yes.
So really, whatever, if there's something he wants in particular, I can certainly send him one that will help him in that area. Or if he just wants me to pick one out for him, I will.
That's great. So thank you so much. Now let's go back to the book. You do have a lot of things like blessing and power and domination, gambling spells. You have empowering, but you do have curses, hexes, and revenge.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Oh yeah. See? Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Because, as much as people like to say that they're just used for healing and whatnot, no. Over cross-culturally, they were used for a lot of revenge and cursing.
No,
certainly that's not the only thing they were used for, but there's a yeah.
Yeah, there is a huge section about that actually in your book. It's very big.
Yep.
But there is also other sections like blessing and there's
healing,
one that is a healing, better business spell, banishing spells. So there's a lot of other things. But let's talk a little bit about the way that you do these spells.
Okay.
You talked about the voodoo doll that has to be made, activated, right? There's like steps, right? So tell us a little bit more about that. When you do a voodoo doll, and you said it's very important the process of making it.
Right.
How do you do it? I mean, can you give us like a very, very short crash course on how to do a voodoo doll and what it means to be activated, really?
Yeah, sure. Well, first you have to have your intent in mind.
Yes.
What's the purpose, and that's going to determine what the doll is made out of, from the colors to the materials. So you decide what the purpose is, and then you gather your ingredients that are consistent with that purpose. So say if I want to make a healing doll, I'll use white fabric that I may have pre-washed with water that was had angelica soaking in it, so, and then then let that dry, and then I would make it, and then stuff it with various healing herbs. And it's really important to be careful what you're thinking and what you're speaking and how you're feeling when you create a doll, because all of those things go into the creation of that doll. So it's a very focused kind of activity, and they should be done, in front of an altar. Now, certainly other people have different ways of doing it. This is the way I find. This is the way I do mine. And then, you need to consecrate the doll. So, basically getting it, purified and ready for ritual work. If you're going to make a doll in the likeness of somebody, then you need to baptize the doll in that person's name. And so that's another part of that process. Then you breathe life into the doll. Or you call a spirit into it. Again, it depends on what the purpose and the intent is of creating it. So.
And that's it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Now there is someone that in the chat room that said, you said that West Africa is the original source, but doesn't every tradition think that they are the original one? Well, we're talking about West Africa is the original source. It's the place where it was born in, where it was actually practiced and came to America. So we're talking about geography here, and when we talk about the original, we're talking about where it began and what was taken from to get in here. Am I right? Right?
Well, if you think about the voodoo religion, it existed more than 10,000, plus years. It actually has its ancient roots in Egypt, East Africa, and Asia Minor, even ancient Turkey, Syria. Greece, that's where the African and Queen Mothers established their empires. And it's just been, people just haven't looked that far enough back in popular culture, I should say. But it's got its roots in a lot of different places.
But when we were talking about where is the original, the original place of birth, it was where we're talking about, Africa and West Africa. We're not talking about, obviously we're not talking about America. We're talking about where it came from and arrived in America, right? So there is this other question that it's very interesting. It's about the process of making the doll, and the alchemist is actually asking, do you need to charge the herbs before you soak them for their purpose, or just once the doll is done, charge/consecrate the doll for its purpose?
Well, I'm of the persuasion that the herbs and roots and things that we get from Mother Earth already have their own spirit. We don't need to consecrate them because they're already pure.
Okay.
There's no need to do that. It's like, some people do. But from the way I was taught, it's not necessary. I can't improve upon Creator,
Well, I know. It's kind of difficult, actually. I know. Now, Master Nestor, he's a ceremonial magician, and he's asking something about the sacred space and something about, what we would call the sacred space. I am, as a practitioner of traditional British witchcraft, we call it the sacred space, our circle, the sacred space. But he's asking, and ceremonial magicians, that they use also a circle, different in a different way that we do, but it's the same thing. It's a sacred space. So he's asking you, are there any circles for working within voodoo, or not? Okay.
No, we don't use a circle.
Okay.
No.
Because he said, well, within the grimoires, or the grimoire tradition, for example, you use the circle when doing different types of work, like, consecrations or something like that. You don't. It's just in the altar, and that's basically it.
The altar space,
yes,
would be your sacred space.
Okay. Yeah. So there's no circle. No circle. No. Master Nestor, sorry. So now, one of the very wonderful things about this is and you said if you look at this, if you look at the dolls that you do, and I'm sure you do it, right? The dolls are done by you. right?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're very beautiful. They're very intricate. The decoration and all of that. And we look at them and say, oh, how cute. But this is not really about cute, because this is about the intent. This is about what the doll is for, and all of
Right.
that. So I see on chapter 2. On the cover of chapter 2 of the Voodoo Doll Spellbook, a doll that it's made out of, I think it's clay. Is it clay? I don't know what it is, but it's on the ground and it's in the bed of ants.
Oh yeah, the ant bed doll.
Yes, yes. So can you tell us a little bit more about that doll?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. This is actually the Mississippi Death Doll.
Yes.
And I have we've actually got 2 videos up on the Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly YouTube channel that describes how it's made and what it's about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a doll that's made out of a clay that has Grigri mixed in with it, and it's called a death doll, and it can be used. It can be used to try to kill somebody, but also it can be used to transform things. And I think when you see the title of it, a lot of people are kind of put off by it.
Yeah.
But it's death is transformation of anything. So if you want to cut ties with somebody, you can create one of these dolls, and as the ants eat away at the doll, so does your tie to this particular person. If you're trying to change, say you're a really angry person and you want to, stop being so angry, you can, create a doll that represents your anger, and you can put it on an ant bed, and the ants will help you transform that anger into whatever it is you want it to transform into. So these are wonderful dolls. I mean, these are great.
It's amazing.
The process of creating them is very. It takes some time to do, but they're quite effective.
Yeah. Now, it's time for another question.
Okay.
I feel very British, kind of like a BBC. It's time for another question. Now, let me give. The other question is, what is the traditional source of clay of the head of a voodoo doll? And it can be the head, or actually it can be this particular doll that we talked about. It can be made out of that clay, but there is a particular clay that the doll is made, and we just want the name of the type of clay. Now, there is something here very interesting. There's a lot of questions on the chat room. One of them is about the veve. Is it necessary to draw the veve for the loa, or can they be printed?
Well, traditionally they should be drawn.
Yes. Yeah.
The power is in the drawing. The power, that's the way of opening up communication to the spirits. It's a very symbolic.
And I think the process, right?
activity.
The process of it. I mean, it's very important.
Right.
When you do it. It's almost like a mantra,
Right.
you're just writing it, and so the whole process is very important.
Right.
Printing it will not give you that at all, I would think, right? I don't know. So.
I mean, some people, do it that way. I think, if you're really seriously wanting to serve the loa, you're going to draw them.
Yes.
You're going to learn how to draw them.
Yes.
And, trust me, the Mambos and Higgins that draw them, they don't, learn to, they don't start off being great, drawers of veves. They do it over time, and they get better and better as they do it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. So now there is a lot of questions here. This is great. So let me see if I can get where I should be. There's another question. How about transforming personal appearance? And we get back to the Mississippi doll. Or would you suggest something else for transforming personal appearance? And the death doll to be used to get rid of a bad habit? Would you also suggest that?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, it can be good for both things.
Mm.
For getting rid of negativity and in the form of bad habit.
Yes.
Now, the other part of this, though, let me make this clear. Magic is a co-creative process.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you create a doll and put it on an ant bed and want to change the way you look, want to lose weight or whatever, that ain't going to happen unless you start changing the way you eat as well, and you start exercising and do the other ththings you need to do to be healthy and to transform your appearance. So.
Okay.
It's a partnership with the universe. It's not a silver platter handed to you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Now I think we have a winner again for this question, and I think that this question has to do with, it was the question about the book.
Okay.
Yeah, to win the book, and it's very interesting. The winner is, let me just say here, just see if I can just say the name correctly, Mephistopheles, which is kind of M-A-T-T, Mephistopheles, Mephistopheles, not Mephistopheles,
Okay.
but Mephistopheles. He said crawdad mud.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. And I said to Indigo, because I don't know, crawfish, and he just says it's the same critter. So
Yep.
he's the winner. So Matt, just congratulations! You just won the Voodoo Doll Spellbook. It's amazing. It's
Awesome.
called A Compendium of Ancient and Contemporary Spells and Rituals, Volume 1.
Right.
That would be great, because then you have to buy the Volume 2. If
Exactly.
you want to have the rest of it, and it's wonderful. So Matt, let's just leave your contact Indigo about your contacts and everything, so that we can send that. So amazing. So there's a lot of questions again, as I said to you. So we are it's very interesting. So he asks Matt, he's asking you, Denise, can you talk a bit more about the use of crawdad mud clay beyond doll making? I have used it for some protection and healing works where respiration is an issue.
I'm not familiar with that use.
That's very interesting, because protection and healing work when where respiration is an issue, and I'm thinking about I don't know, asthma or some kind of respiratory disease.
I'm not sure how that applies. I mean, I would be interested in asking more questions about that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Seth Nurmin is asking you, can the death doll be used to get rid of a bad habit? Yes, you can. We just said that,
Yes.
right? Yes. So, yes, guys, it can.
Yes, it can.
Yes, it can. So let me just get another thing here from your book, and the book is just it's not really. Let me just tell you, it's not a small book, and that's why you had to stop, because it would be like a tome. But there.
Right.
There is this I'm just looking at the hex and curses. I just don't want to be that biased, because I really do love hex and curses, not because I love to hex and
Exactly.
curse, not because I love to hex and curse,
They're fascinating.
but they are fascinating, aren't they?
They are.
Why?
They are.
Okay. Let's just get down to this. Why do you feel that they are fascinating? Because I'm sure that it's the same as me, but I just want to hear you. Why do you think that they're fascinating?
It's such a manifestation of the psyche of humankind.
Absolutely.
It's that shadow side of the personality.
Yeah.
That so many people don't embrace or want to acknowledge. But we
Yeah.
all have it. We all have a shadow side.
Yeah.
And the doll spells are just a wonderful manifestation of that.
Absolutely. No, and I think that there are. I was telling again, Indigo, in Witch Talk Conjuring on Friday. I think that they are very precise. Those spells are very precise, very intricate. They're sometimes they're very, very complex, and the symbology beyond it, it's absolutely beyond. It's amazing because it can be layers and layers and layers of symbology, carefully chosen. Carefully
Right.
chosen, and it's a reflection of the culture where this curse originated in. So it's absolutely amazing to look at those things and then look and dissect. Look at the anatomy of the curse. It's just fascinating to me.
Right.
I just
Right.
I don't know. I just love it. Now, Maestro Nestor probably it's going to be very happy with this finding. There is a goetic ritual section in your book, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, why did you put this in here? What was the motivation? Because we thought, voodoo, it doesn't really have nothing to do with goetic. Some people might think. So why did you include this in here?
Well, again, and let me just remind you, the Voodoo Doll Spellbook is not just about voodoo.
Yes.
The Voodoo Doll Spellbook is a compendium of ancient and contemporary spells and rituals, and I could have put probably across cultures.
Yes.
To make it more clear, but that's,
Yeah.
In many of the grimoires, there are dolls that are used. So,
Yes.
I mean, it seemed
obvious. And
yeah, it seemed like I should add it in
Let
there.
me just put it in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I just I love it. I really do love it. And you have a
And
lot.
they're very complicated. They're complicated rituals.
They're
too.
very complicated.
It's not like voodoo.
No,
It's not like hoodoo or voodoo. That are very, very, clear, straightforward, and simple. For the most part. But
you have this magical doll for invoking spirits. It's just 2, 3 pages, 4 pages. Just describing it and how it's done and all the preparations and stuff. So there's another question from the chat room, and it's regarding the drawing of veves. Can you suggest a way to do it, what to use for those of us who live in a carpeted apartment and do our workings in the privacy of our bedroom? So what would you suggest?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of ways you can adapt it to your environment. So one way that can be used is you can get a big mirror to put on a surface and use that as a surface to draw it on, using cornmeal or cascarilla or whatever you want to use it with, or even if you want to draw it on a big piece of paper. It's the act of drawing it that is important. So you don't have to do it on the ground. You can put your surface that you're going to draw on the ground, or you can just put it on your altar.
Absolutely.
Unless you're going to the peristyle and you're going to do a community kind of ceremony. We're talking about individual practitioners, so it's we're not. It's not the same.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Now, what is, for instance, a very there's one of the things that people really, really like. I mean, they really like this, and I think that it's very important. It's protection and contra magic and defense, which is something that more even than curses. People sometimes feel fascinated by curses because, oh wow, it's that kind of power thing. But protection is very important and defense is very important. So I think that there's a section in your book about that, and it's absolutely amazing. Protection, contra magic, and defense. Now, what do you think that it's the I'm sure that you saw this in your magical life. I mean, in your life, in when you were growing up and everything. What do you think are the symptoms of someone that has a curse or had something upon them that are really making them that you might think you might need some contra magic here. So what do you think that it's the most common thing that appears to be a sign or a symptom of that, of that necessity to actually have contra magic going on and work upon that?
Normally your life begins to be chaos, and when it's not normally that way.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't seem like if you haven't done anything differently, and if confusion is one thing. Conflicts with people that you wouldn't normally have conflicts with. Pets dying, that's a big one. That just all of a sudden they get sick.
Yeah.
Or you just get sick, or people in your family start getting sick. And normal means of dealing with those things don't make a difference. Dreams, paying attention to dreams will give you a lot of information about what's going on with you spiritually. That's what I look at. I have to, when somebody, talks to me about that, I ask them all those questions, and then also divination is very important to find out if there's any underlying spiritual influences. More often than not, it's not a curse. More often than not, it is simply the result of poor choices that we make and poor company that we keep. And people don't like to hear that, but that's the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the
You
truth.
have to change friends, okay? You have to... Just don't call them, don't... No, sometimes it's that, and it's
if
very
you're living
difficult.
with your parents, or you're living with a partner that's always putting you down and abusing you, and
Just
you're feeling like
leave.
crap, and things aren't going well, maybe there needs to be some changes there.
Yeah. No, sometimes it's just common sense, and people don't really realize this. You know what I mean?
No.
And it's absolutely, So, another thing that I wanted to talk about, this is a fantastic book. Let me tell you again, it's absolutely amazing. But I do want to talk about your project, this other project that you have, which is the Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly, which is absolutely amazing. It's a magazine. Well, they said that it's a journal. Is that what they call it? A journal. But it's just it's amazing. It's an amazing, you would call it a very high quality magazine, because it's absolutely amazing. Now tell me, who does the graphics on this?
Oh, it's mostly mine. I do all the artwork. We have some other artists that contribute, and we're going to have more of those as time goes on.
Who does the layout of this? Is you?
Oh, I do.
And the design?
Yep.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Amazing. Congratulations, Denise, because this is an amazing job. And I'm telling you, I design books and covers and all of that, so it's just amazing. It really is amazing.
Thank you. Awesome.
Now, you have a lot of artwork that it's yours on this particular magazine, and the cover is just stunning. I mean, this is one of your artworks right here on the cover, right?
Yes.
It's very beautiful. Yep. And it's absolutely amazing. And you have other things inside. Now, this is the kind of, that there's a lot of magazines that we open, right? And we actually subscribe to them, so we actually pay a lot of money sometimes, and they never come. Did you ever that happen to you, when you just subscribed to some pagan magazine and it never came?
Yeah.
Yes, so you paid and everything. So, and this is amazing. This is an amazing, and we just, what do we have? I really, in the spectrum of pagan magazines, we have very few magazines that are, I don't know any magazine, to tell you the truth, that has this kind of quality. Absolutely amazing. I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing. Now, one of the questions that we have for this magazine, you can win this magazine if you're listening to us, and right now. So we want to know, what is the name of the woman that it's the front cover, the art in the front cover, the name of the woman that it's the front cover of Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly. So this is it's an artwork of Denise Alvarado, and it's the face of a woman, and we want to know the name, right? Is that it?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Just tell us the name, and you will be sitting.
It'd be pretty easy, y'all.
Oh, yeah, it is very easy. It is very easy. So, okay. Now, you can figure it out very, very quickly. So now, how do you subscribe to this magazine?
Well, at this point, we are not taking subscriptions until we figure out how we can afford to do so, because the cost of printing the magazine is that's the trade-off for having such good graphics.
Yes.
And full color and everything. So,
yes.
We initially had people, sign up for subscriptions, and then, once we actually got to the point of printing and publication, we realized, well,
we
we needed to charge a whole lot more than we did.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not feasible right now. So that's why we went to selling the individual magazines. Now, initially it was going for $19.95, and now we've lowered it to $14.95. And you can get it on Amazon.com from seller Planet Voodoo.
Okay.
You can get it for $14.95 now.
Okay.
And so that was kind of a way we could kind of compromise and allow it to, be a little cheaper for people, but we still can't do the subscriptions yet. But we're going to figure out how we can do it.
Yes, yeah.
We're going to.
It's absolutely amazing. So there you go. We have a winner, the Artful David. What a wonderful name. What a wonderful name.
Yeah. I know, it's David. Hi, David.
So he said Marie Laveau. And he's
not surprising.
Yes, Marie Laveau. So it's absolutely amazing. Now, everybody that is, connected with voodoo has this worships or have this connection with Marie Laveau, and we know that she was a very, very important figure in the voodoo in New Orleans. Can you tell us a little bit more about her? For people that don't know, I mean, they really know Marie Laveau, but they don't really know, what is the importance of Marie.
She really is specific to New Orleans voodoo. People that in Haiti don't recognize her as a Loa, and she is definitely, specific to our tradition. She was, the most famous voodoo queen there ever was.
Yes,
She's credited for putting, making voodoo actually into a business. She's the one that she and Dr. John also, who was a Grigri man at the time, and some say that he was even more powerful than she was in terms of his Grigri, but that's debatable. I don't think it really matters. They were both powerful.
Yes.
But she was the one who really was successful at making it a business.
That's amazing.
She did a lot of healing work.
Mm-hmm.
She was, like I said, very powerful. She did a lot of court work, and she was very famous for, manipulating people in positions of power. I can tell you one thing that thing that she's not.
Yeah.
That is a popular misconception that just makes my skin crawl every time I hear it. But people talk about her as a con woman. That she was so good at conning people. She was a hairdresser. She heard everybody's secrets, and then she would, set people up to think they were cursed, and then they would have to go to her to get the remedy. And I think that is just. She was very cunning. I like to call her cunning. She wasn't conning. She was cunning.
Yes.
She was a very good businesswoman. And people need to really get off of that, because it's very patronizing, and it's very,
It is.
Like
it takes the power out of her, which is not really what we want. And it's absolutely, there's always someone who does that to big figures or our ancestors, and there's always someone who says, oh yeah, well, she was a blah blah blah. Well, yeah,
right.
Well, okay, good luck with that. But we don't really actually see her like that, and stop calling that. Don't say it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We don't. We
you
consider
don't
her very legitimate.
Absolutely.
As if she was alive today and she was as successful as she was, she would be called a very, a good businesswoman. So
absolutely. Now tell me one thing. There is always someone that we look at some point in time, and that said, oh, that is the Marie Laveau of today. Is there anyone in New Orleans right now that people would equate to Marie Laveau? Or there was ever? I mean, I don't know. After she...
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Because some people say
not
that,
in the same way she was.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because I think that the time in history that she, was alive, and I think that has a lot to do with it. That's not to say that there aren't some very powerful and effective and wonderful women in New Orleans voodoo today. We have Priestess Miriam. She's wonderful. We have an interview coming up with her in Volume 3 of Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's some great priestesses, but not like her, right? Not like her.
Not really. I don't think it's really fair to compare them.
Yes. Yeah.
She was put on the map. She put herself on the map. We put her on the map. I don't know how it happened, but she's just, she's risen to the status of Loa, which is, based on her works and her reputation following her death. So.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, did she left anything, like written things, or was just or any disciples or anything like that, or any apprentices, or anyone that would be in contact with her and then continued her work? Is there any story about this, or there's nothing left?
No, there is a tradition that was passed down. It's not one that's well known, and it's not a popular one in terms of accepting a whole bunch of initiating a bunch of people into her tradition and that kind of thing. It's not that way. But certainly her tradition has been passed down in New Orleans, and not only through her lineage but also just through people who were alive, who were practitioners at the time, and adopted some of her practices. And
that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
No written words.
Oh well, okay. So there's there's a couple different schools of thought on that. One is that, like most Africans at the time, she was illiterate. Okay, people assumed she was illiterate, and so, well, how could she write anything down? And then, years ago, there surfaced this book about, the Marie Laveau spellbook or whatever it's called. I can't remember, but it's that little black book, and it's supposedly based on some of her things she wrote down. But it's not by her. It's written by somebody else. And then there's the other school of thought that, well, since her father was French and very well educated, that more people are starting to consider that perhaps she was literate.
Yes.
And maybe she did write some stuff down. So I don't know. I can't tell you yes or no.
Yeah.
Eventually, originally I was of the school of thought that she was not literate, that she was illiterate, and so probably didn't write things down.
Okay.
But I'm open to this new theory.
Okay. Yeah. This new theory about her being, literate and stuff. So there is another question on the chat room. What are the ways in which men and women approach their works differently in regards to cycles of women in particular? So is there any? I mean, obviously, I'm sure that it is different, but the question is regarding cycles of women in particular. So what do you have to say about this? The difference between works done by men and works done by women, and
cycles. Is she referring to
menstrual cycles?
I'm
thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, for me, this is a big Native American influence on my personal practice. I have a big influence in the Native way in my practice. So, in the Native way, we don't participate in ceremonies with the community when we are on our moons, and that's not because a lot of people will think that it's because you're contaminating people or whatever.
Yes.
That you're unclean, but it's not that. It's because you're very powerful at that time, and because women who are on their moons are so powerful that they can actually influence the outcome of the ceremony. The energy is so great. So. And they have another role. They have a supportive role that they can do at this time. Like if I'm, doing a ceremony, then that, a person, a woman who's in her moon may not be right there at the ceremony, but they may be at the house, up at the house, cooking and, getting other things prepared for us.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a very important role. But you know.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I
Yeah.
just love it. Because, there's a lot of theories about this, and people think that it's, oh, no, 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 you can't work magic when you're masturbating. No, 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 you can't really do
Well, of
that.
course you
That's
can.
Yes, of course you can. And I think that it's like you, I think it is a very powerful, time.
Mhm.
Because it's time when actually you're there's this impulse of creation of life, and some, obviously, if you're not, if you don't have the right conditions, obviously you don't really grow anything, but still, I mean, there's this impulsive life, and it's very, very powerful.
Mhm.
And all the hormones are going, and all of these things. It's a peak, and it's
And it's a great
absolutely.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
go ahead, go ahead. It's a great time.
I was going to say it's a great time to do sex magic and,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
magic that has to do with fertility and
yeah,
those kinds of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
Family.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's absolutely amazing. Now we have to talk about this very quickly because we actually are passing the 2 hours already.
Oh my God.
I know, I know, I know, I know. But I just wanted to go into very shortly. But I wanted to go into the magazine quarterly, the Hoodoo
Uh-huh.
and Conjure. When is the next one coming out?
I am hoping to have it done next week. We
Okay.
are behind schedule big time, but anybody who has paid for a subscription, you will get your 4 issues. It
Okay.
just may take us a little over a year to get them to you.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
this is all part of our growing pains with creating, a
Yeah.
magazine. I've been on the editorial board of an academic journal before. I'm an
Mhm.
author. I'm a
Mhm.
self-published author, as
Mhm.
well as
Mhm.
published under Weiser and Canary Press. But creating a magazine from the ground up, there's a lot more to it than even I realized.
It's absolutely amazing. It's very, very wonderful, and you have a lot of absolutely amazing articles in here.
Yeah.
A short look at witchcraft and self-defense in the diaspora. It's absolutely
Hmm.
amazing. You have also the shoe and foot track magic, which is one of
Yes,
my
by Carolina
favorites.
Dean.
It's
Yep.
absolutely amazing. I just love it.
Yeah.
And Dirt Pauber Nests, multi-purpose zoological curio. It's
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful. You have like a lot of, one of the things that I really, really like is that there's a lot of practical recipes in this. Ways,
Right.
and they show, there's this one thing that it's absolutely amazing. Bottle Spells for Prosperity, an old-time Southern hoodoo tradition by Matthew.
Hmm.
And it's very well done. It's very well written, and it's very
Hmm.
well. The photographs are amazing, and you're.
Well, Matt is a wonderful photographer, and
It's very good.
he contributes a lot of photography to this next issue as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I just love it. I really, really do. And there's a lot of things, including sex magic. Here we go. Secrets of sex magic. We're just talking
Oh
about
yeah.
that. And and
Sharon Marino. Yep.
absolutely. Paper voodoo doll protection spell. There's a lot of spells, a lot of articles. It's very practical, guys. And there's a lot of obviously there are things about for you to read and to really assimilate. But there's also a lot. I would say, I don't know. Would you say 80% of the magazine, or 75% of the magazine, is spells and practical things here and there?
Yeah.
So it's,
Formulas.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely amazing. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you actually buy them, just buy them now.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Just get the other issues also. So
Well, we try to cover each issue. We're going to include a historical manuscript
oh
that has that's about New Orleans voodoo,
yes, yes.
or something related, and then we have Eileen Pistanio is our folklore expert, our New Orleans folklore expert, and she covers some of the folklore that's unique to New Orleans in each issue, and that's a wonderful
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely
column that
amazing.
she does.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
great.
but yeah, and then we try to have the information articles that are background and contextual, and then like you said, we have a lot of applied magic, a lot of applied information. So
It's
you
amazing.
can
It's
read the
amazing.
article and then learn and know how to do something.
Absolutely.
And apply it right
And
away.
the other thing that I like is that you, for instance, you have this article here, "The Return of the Psalm Magic and Mixed Kabbalah," by
Yes,
Aaron Leith, and and then he has like a quote of Sarita, which is absolutely amazing. Goetia is the new black.
right.
I just love it. This is so Sarita, yes.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's wonderful.
And so, as you see, there is a lot more than just, hoodoo or voodoo in here. And it's absolutely amazing. Very, very good quality. The paper is amazing. It's very thick. I just love it. And one of the things that I really like, I hate when those magazines you have like 5 pages of, in the middle with all of these publicity and all of these things. The publicity in here is very, very discreet. So it's placed in places strategically, I'm sure, so that would not distract you or interfere with your reading, although you can pass through it. So it's absolutely amazing and very well thought. Very well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you
for doing this.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
It's amazing. It's very good. So now let's talk about, I'm so sorry, we're really behind. I mean, can you believe that we already covered all of this?
I can't believe it.
It's amazing.
And here I was all nervous about doing the interview.
I know. Let's talk very, very briefly about your Eshu, Divine Trickster and Master Magician. What can we well, you said that it's a Planet Voodoo Applied Magic Handbook series, and it's just very interesting. Tell us a little bit about this book, and when we open it, what can we find in there?
It's basically just it's an introduction to who Eshu is and how to work with him. Actually, Eshu is a family of spirits, but he's some of us in New Orleans work with him, and I just have had a lot of questions about him and how do I work with him. And I initially had written a document that went with the doll that I would create for people who bought the doll. They would get a free copy of this book. Mm-hmm. And then as more and more people were interested in it, I thought, well, I probably need to develop this a little bit more. So I decided to, write a little bit more about it, so add a few more, spells or whatever, how to work with them, and try to guide people in the right way. It's certainly not from an initiate's standpoint. It is not from, the standpoint of being an initiated, practitioner in one of the, Kimbanda or, any of those traditions that work with them. This is for... Yeah. So.
And then there is another one that I really want to talk about, which is the voodoo dolls in Magic and Ritual.
Right.
Which is another one that you have. It's a very beautiful cover.
Thank you.
And there's a veve, a suggestion of a veve here.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me well, obviously this is about voodoo dolls and ritual and magic, but what is the difference between this one and the one that you have here, the Voodoo Doll Spellbook?
Well, the Voodoo Dolls and Magic and Ritual, I really spend half of the book writing, talking about the history of voodoo dolls, and then doing a survey of dolls and magic, the different types of dolls that have been used in magic and ritual over the, again, across cultures. And then the other half of the book is about, is applied magic spells and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then, so the new book, the Voodoo Doll Spell Book, is all about applied magic. It's all spells. There's not the background. The entire book is, a book of spells.
Yes, yeah.
So
very interesting. Now, there is a very interesting question on the chat room. This time is about transgender. When working on a transgender person, how do you refer to them? I mean, when they are not present. Born gender or current gender identity, to be more specific. I mean, their birth name or the name or the name that they, adopted. Or do you use both names? So how do you do this?
I refer to a person the way they refer to themselves.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
If I have somebody who, is transgendered male, I'm not going to, refer to him as a female or call him by his birth name, because that's not who he is.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. No, but you
Yeah,
know
so
that when you do the Greek technique, that you actually have to write the name of the person, and to be specific, you write son of or daughter of, and then you write the name of the mother. So I was thinking about this when I read this, and I said, well, but you can always, as Denise said, you use the name as they refer themselves, how
right.
they identify themselves, and that's the identity of the person. Now it's what is important. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it's important. Now,
Yep.
you have another one, which is called the Voodoo Hoodoo Spellbook.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
absolutely amazing. It has a new cover, right? I think
Well, I have a
so.
whole new book. Actually, it's been
Yeah.
revised
Okay.
and rewritten. And the
Okay.
new version, which is going to be out November 1st, there's lots and lots and lots of new stuff in it. I mean, really, the whole thing has been reorganized, rewritten, and it's all original stuff. Before, I had a lot of references to other sources. This time, it's all specifically New Orleans stuff that I learned when I was growing up, and stuff I've learned, as I've been practicing from other people, my teachers and whatnot. But it's very different in that way. All the chapters are fleshed out. The Grigri chapter it goes into a lot of detail about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's absolutely
I'm very
amazing.
proud of the revision.
It's very good. And tell me, I'm looking to the book that has Marie Laveau in the cover. Is that the new one,
Yes.
or is
No, that's
that's
the
the
original version, which
okay?
is now no longer available. I had to
Okay.
take it off the shelves now.
Okay.
So now it's going for $200+ on Amazon.com.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Now
Whatever.
I know. Now
God.
tell me one thing. When I looked at this is Marie Laveau's tomb, right? It's a
Yes.
photograph of Marie Laveau's tomb. What
Right.
are those X's? What is that?
That's the X's are it refers to the haunted New Orleans wish spell. They call her the wishing tomb. And the tradition is that you pick up a piece of the broken red brick that's lying around in the cemetery, and usually there's a lot around her grave because people do this all the time.
Yes.
And you draw 3 X's while making your wish on the tomb, and then you turn around 3 times counterclockwise, and then head on off to St. Louis Cathedral, light yourself a blue candle, and she's supposed to grant your wish.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
Now, we're not advocating that. The family really sees that as desecration, so we
Yes, of
don't
course,
advocate
yeah.
that you do that. And so now it's like, if you really want to do a wish spell, you can just, print out a picture of her grave and draw on it. Do it that way, but don't go desecrating the tomb, because they have to repaint that tomb probably every month.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, and it's not really pretty. Now, this is I think one of the things we have to talk about in the next time, because I'm sure that we will have you again on Witch
Awesome.
Talk if you want to, because isn't this amazing? 2 hours and a quarter.
Unreal.
15. Unreal. Absolutely out of this world. So now we have to wait for the next time to talk about Native Americans and your connection with that, and also about your new project. So we will talk about that, and possibly even new books that you will have. So we'll see. Is there anything in the future? Obviously this one, and what else? The other one, the volume 2 of Voodoo Doll Spellbook, and what else?
Right.
Do we have more?
Yes, we do. We have the New Orleans Voodoo Hoodoo Formulary.
Ooh, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes, it's 412 pages right now and counting. So I don't know how I'm going to sell my publisher on that, but that one might have to be self-published, because I don't want to cut anything out of it.
Yes, no. Yeah, well, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Just, do whatever you have to, because we're waiting. We're waiting for it. So, thank you so much, Denise, for being here with us and to share all of this with us. It was amazing. And, there's a lot of questions in the chat room. That's why we answered all of those also.
Okay.
Matt is saying actually that people also leave pennies on the grave, on her grave.
Yeah, which is such an
Yeah.
insult,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
best offering you can do for her is to do like charity work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Or bring her a bottle of French wine, for Christ's sake, or something,
Don't give her money. Are you kidding me?
not free pennies.
Oh, please. Okay, so sometimes people don't think about these things. Why would
No.
Okay, tell me, why would you give pennies if she was alive? Would you go to her and say, "Here, 3 pennies"?
Right.
You wouldn't do that.
No.
So
You might get Grigri for that one.
yes. Exactly. Exactly. So don't do that. Now, thank
Yeah.
you so much again for being here. I'm
Oh,
going
you're so
to
welcome.
I'm going to close the show, but don't go anywhere because I'm going to talk to you in a little bit. Okay? Don't hang up.
Okay, sounds
Don't
good.
hang up.
All right.
Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
You so much for being here, Denise. Thank you for being
You're
on
so
Witch Talk.
welcome.
Thank you. And that's it. This is it for today. The show was wonderful. We have a lot of questions answered, and I'm sure that Denise will come back again to the show very, very soon. So thank you, everybody, for being on the chat room. This will go on our podcast, so wait a little bit, and I will put it on iTunes for you. For those of you that are, just relying on iTunes, I will put it very, very, very shortly. So next week we will not have Witch Talk, so you have to actually wait 2 weeks to have Witch Talk. But we will come back on the week next to the next, and we will have Z Budapest, and we'll begin again. So until then, have a wonderful, wonderful summer, and I will see you 2 weeks from now. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye.